Hi, everyone. Welcome to PeopleMetrics Live. My name is Alexandra Quintero, and I'm the Senior Director here at PeopleMetrics. And today we'll be discussing how to use patient feedback to develop business cases. With that, let's dive into some quick introductions.
Hi there, I'm Audrey Squaresky. I'm the COO here at PeopleMetrics, and I'm excited to talk about patient support teams and business cases today.
Hi, I'm Sean McDade, founder and CEO of PeopleMetrics. Also excited to be here today. And this is a topic that's near and dear to our heart, isn't it, Audrey?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've done work for patient support services teams since 2015. I have a book called Pharma Customer Experience, which at least half of it is dedicated to patient support teams, if not a little bit more. You can get that on Amazon. That's an Amazon bestseller. Isn't that right, Alexandra?
Correct, it is.
Yes, it is. And, you know, throughout that book, we talk about how it's, really important for patient support services teams to measure the experience of their customers. And their customers are patients, of course, but there could be HCPs, it could be caregivers. And part of that measurement goes beyond even delivering a great experience. It's creating, what we would call a business case for patient support services itself. Because patient support services, if you're in it, that's, if people are watching, it's a cost center. It's something that does cost money, especially like high touch patient support services teams with call centers and case managers and dedicated support lines. Those things all cost money, right? So, it's really important to have data to show kind of the ROI from that investment. And, that is definitely available, and we see it every day for our clients. But Audrey, I know you work with many of them directly. How would you frame that, and how do you think they think about the business case piece?
Yeah, I mean, I think this topic comes up often because the people who are really entrenched in talking with the customers or the patients or the HCPs are very clear on why it's so important and what the outcomes are. But I think it's harder to see when you're not looking at the data daily. And so what we're going to talk about today is how to take the information that you have that's out there in the world and that you have from your own program and use it to help others understand what the business case is and how it can help save you money.
Correct. So when you're thinking about business case, Audrey, and when we talk to our clients about business cases, there's a couple of different types of information that you can gather to really create a business case. And one is information we call it secondary data, right? So it's data that exists and it's out there in the world. And that's, always a good place to begin, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is probably what everyone needs to start with. And this is how you would probably start any type of business case that you were looking to make. You would look to see what information is already readily available to you. And we're calling it secondary data or secondary information because it's not yours, you didn't get it, but it's out there in the world available from research that other people have done, from programs that they've run and have published that data. So it's information that's available through a number of different channels that you can use as the beginning or as the basis of your business case.
Alexandra, we have an example of that, right? Of the secondary information. So that's a great place to begin. So where do you find the secondary information? Google's a good place to start. Googling patient support services teams, and we have some data that we'll show you in a second. And my book has many bits of information. Pharma Customer Experience is full of secondary data for you, specifically from feedback from patients and HCPs from patient support teams. But here's an example of some secondary data. And we just listed the sources. This is the beginning of a business case. And business cases can be two things, right, Audrey? And I think this is something that's important to note. If you don't have patient support services connected to a product, so if you're launching a new product and you're thinking about figuring out how to support it, and patient support is part of that, then there's a business case to be made to launch patient support services in general, and whether that's a high touch, medium touch, or low touch offering. And then there's the business case once you already have it up and running, right? So that's probably worth at least mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think business case is often thought of to get something started. Do I need to make a case to get the funding to start this program? But I think it's important that we're looking at business case in terms of programs that are already in existence, because often they are looked at as cost centers in the business. And then people have to prove why this is useful, why it's important. And so I think a lot of what we're going to talk about is going to help clear that up.
So this secondary data, these are examples, right, of secondary data that exists from different sources. And, patients are expecting support, pharma companies are investing in it, they're spending a lot of money, physicians feel it's valuable. In my book, we showed that about half of patients are satisfied with patient support services. Awareness probably isn't as high as it needs to be. These are all examples of secondary data that you can use as a basis to begin, why patient support services is valuable. Clearly there wouldn't be this kind of money spent if there weren't some sort of return on investment, right? So, the key things that we talk to clients, the really like hard numbers that patient support teams impact that we've seen are on getting people prepared for onboarding and enabling them to adhere to their medication over time, right? Those are the two. Audrey, would you agree that's why patient services exists?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that the pharmaceutical companies have struggled with over time. And this has been a solution that's been effective in addressing those two things.
Right. And look, we know there are different types of patient support services for different drug categories, right? So rare disease and orphan drugs are going to have much more of a high touch model than mass market medications, right? That would likely always have a digital patient support services. It's really just patient support. I don't think there's services really. It's a website. And then there's things in between, right? Like we've had clients that have had like kind of custom portals, right? That are a mixture between that. It isn't just a common website, it's something specific for them. Right, Audrey?
Yeah, so I would say this is not a one size fits all kind of thing. It really depends on your patient population and the disease state and the method of administering the medication and the volume of patients that you expect to have over time, and lots of factors would go into developing your program to determine what is going to be the best fit.
So today what we'll do is we'll take one use case, which is a rare disease use case that where it's a high touch model, where there is case managers being used, and show kind of how you can begin to kind of put together a business case to show the impact of patient support services. So Alexandra, let's move to the next slide. So we have these 15 questions. And if you've been on PeopleMetrics Live before, you've probably seen these. These are 15 questions that we use to measure the impact and the experience of patients with a high touch patient support services offering. Normally with rare disease, where there are case managers. And we've been doing this, like we've said, since 2015. So a lot of experience and a lot of data that went into this. And so the 15 are 15 questions that we use pretty regularly. I mean, it's not like every one of these is in every study, but we've asked these across many studies, and these are always like what clients want to do. But the core ROI ones that we're going to go through, the business case ones, I'd say everybody asks, right, Audrey?
Yes, yeah, these are the ones that are across all different types of programs that we've seen.
So let's get to the next slide. We'll show kind of what we're talking about here. So this is a model that I've gone through a few times. This is based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it means that at the bottom of the pyramid, that need needs to be fulfilled before the next need becomes relevant. So in Maslow, what was it, Audrey? It's like, if you don't have a house and you don't have food, it's hard to think about how you'll be self-actualized, right? Like, or your purpose in life. You're not worried about your purpose in life if you don't have food or a house. In this case, for patients, it's if I can't afford my medication, i.e. have financial security, then I'm not really concerned about anything else. Any of these other things become almost secondary, because it doesn't matter if I can't afford it, then I don't care where I can find it. I don't care how to administer it. I don't care about the support system, because it won't be for me. So just to give everybody a grounding on what this is. So once you achieve financial security, then patients are like, okay, where can I find my medication? The third one is how can I effectively administer it or get it administered if it's some sort of, if I need help on that. And do I have a support system that I can get all of my questions answered? And then finally, I have confidence that I'm going to onboard. And I would argue that patient support services teams exist to get patients from that financial security up to that confidence, top of the pyramid. Because when you get to the top of the pyramid with confidence, they're much more likely to onboard than not. These are 15 questions. There's numbers next to them, but we have three or four highlighted. Audrey, do you want to explain why we highlighted these four that we think are particularly important?
Yeah, so these are ones that we see commonly asked. And when we look at the data from these questions, we can really see that these questions are driving what's important to the program and to the company, that patients are able to successfully onboard and then they adhere to treatment over time. So when we look, and you'll see at the top here in confidence, patient satisfaction, and then we follow that question up with an open end where we allow them to give the reason that they rated their satisfaction where they did on the scale. And that provides a lot of color to the score so that we can guide our clients on what to do next and why patients feel the way they do. And then PX15, you'll see up there in the confidence section as well, preparedness for treatment. So are patients prepared to onboard treatment when they start? And we ask this question because, we'll show you the data following this, but it's very clear that patients who are prepared for treatment are also highly satisfied and then have better outcomes in the long term.
And just to follow on what you're saying, Audrey, we're saying patient satisfaction with patient support services.
Yeah, of course.
It's a specific question around, are they satisfied with the services they've received from patient support, right? And then that second question is we're asking them why. So where they're asking them to type in or tell us exactly why they were satisfied or not satisfied with patient support services. And the preparedness for treatment is a simple yes/no question. There's no scale on that. We used to have a scale, and we found it's much more reliable to ask just a yes/no on that. You're either prepared or you're not, right? There's no middle ground for that. And because you're either going to go get the medication or you're not. And then case manager satisfaction is an overall satisfaction measure of your case manager. And with high touch patient support services, the case manager does drive quite a bit of the experience. And knowing what that data looks like is often really, really important, because we know if you're head of a patient services team, you know how much you're paying for good case managers. They're extremely expensive. You have to get them up to speed. There's training costs. But the value they can deliver, especially for rare disease patients, and I cover this in my book with real life quotes and examples. It's amazing what they can do. Like they're absolutely considered part of the team that's helping the patient, and that the good ones will feel like they're part of the team as much as almost the HCP even.
Yeah, 100%. And it's been amazing to read some of the comments from patients about the difference that these support teams have made in them feeling prepared, in understanding what they need to do, and then really in feeling satisfied with the support they're receiving. Specific to case manager satisfaction, we see the very high scores where patients are very satisfied with their case manager really translates into overall satisfaction. And versus when they don't have such a great experience with their case manager, we see that the flip side as well. We've also seen in case manager satisfaction that patients provide feedback on what is going well and what's not, so that companies are able to coach and train and make changes to programs based on this feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of a business case is both an art and a science, right? So we're going to show you a little bit of both on the next couple slides, but it's really important to deliver more than numbers in a business case. And that's why we're recommending, when you're looking at building a business case, have some sort of qualitative aspect of it. And PX2, reason for satisfaction, is a qualitative question where people are writing in, patients are writing in, HCPs are writing in how they feel about the experience they've had. And oftentimes they mention the case manager there. I'd say more than the people who are really happy, more than half the times they're writing the reason for that is their case manager. And if you can include some qualitative quotes from patients or HCPs next to your numbers, then that really hits home.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we do that on our reports. We try to, graphs are great, but quotes are what really tug at the heart. And yeah, so let's give an example of that. So we have a couple more slides, right, Alexandra, that we can show. So this isn't that, but we'll talk about this now. So we looked at, for one client, the how satisfied their patients were. We've grouped them into these 3 groups. The promoters were super happy with patient support services, very satisfied. The detractors were unhappy with patient support services, and the passes were somewhere in the middle, not unhappy, not happy. But look at the percentages in terms of prepared to begin treatment. Almost everyone who was satisfied with patient support services, the promoters, were prepared to begin treatment. Whereas half, actually less than half, it looks like, Audrey, were of people who were not satisfied with patient support services, were not prepared to begin treatment. And this is a great business case to designing a patient support services team that really executes at a very high level and delivers exceptional experiences, because it pays off with onboarding.
Yep.
Right. So that's one example. And the second example, Alexandra, we have a second slide, right? This is another kind of use case. And this I really like, Audrey, because we're integrating both a quote, so that's a qualitative statement, along with some quantitative evidence as to the impact of patient support services. So what we're saying here is, in this case, about 80% of the patients were very satisfied with patient support services, and every one of them, 100%, said they were prepared for treatment. Where only 2% said they weren't satisfied, so very few, but still enough, but 1/3 of them were not prepared for treatment. So while these numbers are still, like, that's still a big chunk of people who were not prepared, and they definitely have it's related to, in some way, the satisfaction they received or the experience they received with patient support services.
Yeah, exactly. And we included this quote here as an example. This is a quote that we received in one of these studies, but there are many of them, and it really aligns that we often see that people who are prepared and highly satisfied talk about their case manager in these quotes, like you said.
And this is like, and look, a business case is not a dissertation, right? It should be very accessible to someone who you're showing and showing value to, whoever that is within the organization. A chart like this, I think, really does a good job of a couple things. One, it shows that you are executing at a high level right now, right? 8 out of 10 patients are very satisfied, highly satisfied. And when they're all prepared for treatment. There's very few who aren't satisfied, but we know when we don't deliver, it impacts the ability to onboard, which is our key metric. And we tie it all together with a quote about the case manager really helping make this all happen, all within one slide. So these are the kind of, I think, effective business cases. A good example of an effective slide that would be in a business case is, showing these things all in one slide, but not overwhelming the audience.
Yeah, and I think that point you made about preparing a business case is true. It doesn't have to be a dissertation. It can be a handful of slides or a one pager to get your point across. And then you have to have the data to back it up and be able to expand on it if asked. But the business case doesn't need to be a very involved or very long piece of collateral.
I want to end with this final topic. A business case is not an event. A business case is a journey. Okay, so you'll do a business case, right? Which is important to show value. But once you do it, it's not like you're done forever. The business case must be updated on a regular basis. Would you agree with that, Audrey?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why it's so important to collect feedback continuously, or at least at certain like a certain cadence, so that you're getting it updated.
Yeah, look, I mean, primary, and this is primary data when you go out and collect it from your patients and HCPs based on your patient support services. You know, you can look on the web and you can look in my book and you can get lots of data that will present a good business case. But if you want a great business case, it should be data from your patients. And there's a couple ways to do that, right, Audrey? So, you know, you can get something done relatively quickly by reaching out to all patients who have had a recent interaction with the support services and get all of this data within a few weeks. We do that all the time for companies that haven't measured before and they want to get a baseline and they want to understand some of this data, including these key metrics around preparedness, overall satisfaction, case manager satisfaction, and this qualitative type quotes that we have here. And, you know, you can get that in and out, what, in like 6 weeks or so, we could get one of those done?
The whole thing, yeah, absolutely. Probably even a little bit faster.
And that's a great way to begin. But the other way and that's like a picture, right? That's the analogy I would provide. You're taking a picture at a point in time of how effective the patient support services are. But those who really take it to the next level aren't taking a picture, they're doing a video, aren't they? And a video is something that's going over time. And it's much longer and it happens all the time. And it's, you know, identifying patients who are about to onboard or are in the onboarding process and getting their feedback on their experience during onboarding continuously. So every new patient gets surveyed and you get feedback on their experience on onboarding. And that's a specific touch point. And those are the clients, I think, and those are the companies that I see, at least in the data I look at, Audrey, that make patient support services make the biggest jumps.
Agree. And I think those are the programs that are most effective. I like that analogy a lot. I think it's a good one that fits here and is easy to understand. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I'm not even close to this, I don't know, how do I choose which touch point to start with or something like that? Yeah. We can help with that too. We do journey mapping. Maybe you want to start with an advisory board where you get a small group of patients and HCPs and other stakeholders where you can ask them just that group questions over time. And then the outcome from that data, where you can do interviews, can help guide this program and how you manage your patient support services team and program.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's lots of different ways to begin. There's some that are, you know, quick and easy, and you get, you know, I would say that baseline is a no-brainer for most support teams. Whether, by the way, you have this in-house or you're using a hub, it's both. Either way, it's very relevant. And especially if you have a hub and you're not controlling the experience, it's important to understand what that experience is and how you can help that hub deliver a better one. But over time, you know, that onboarding touch point is so important. Like, to me, that you have a couple of patients that you help kind of flip from being prepared, not prepared, to prepared, and that thing is paying for itself many times over, especially in rare disease.
And it will help you prevent the lack of preparedness with new patients who are onboarding down the road.
That's right. So there's two levels to this, right? You can flip, you can make sure that someone who isn't prepared is prepared because you're aware of it. And then you can understand why they weren't prepared and change things so that everyone is more prepared in the future. And you've seen that many times, right, Audrey, in the clients that you've worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the best use of these programs, is to take the feedback and then make strategic decisions about change to best serve your patients, and then implement them. And then we measure again, either with that point in time snapshot a year later, say, or you'll see in the continuous feedback that we can do trends over time, and your scores will change based on adjustments that you've made to your program.
Well, I think that's been a good discussion.
Let's see, do we have any questions? What is the exact cadence that we should be pulling this information to create?
Right. So
I think they mean when to create the case study.
No, that's right. So if you do, our recommendation, starting with that relationship baseline, that you get all this data, that's point one, develop a business case around it. I'd suggest you update the business case on an annual basis, where you're updating data, you're showing additional information. And that annual could be another snapshot study where you're just comparing point A to point B, or if you start focusing on the onboarding touch point, you're going to have plenty of data to update that case study by the end of the year, kind of continuously. What do you think about that, Audrey?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then I think they might also be asking about how often should we pull the measurements. So in the point in time, I think annually makes sense. If you're doing continuous feedback, I think you can look at your numbers as often as quarterly, but we often do report readouts that are either biannual or annual. The other thing is, I think it depends on your patient population. If you're one of those lower touch but high volume situations, then you might want to look at your data more often because you'll have enough to make decisions. If you are a higher touch with a lower patient population, I think you need to make sure that you're hearing from enough of your patients to feel like you have a good understanding and then make decisions based on that. So it might take a little bit longer, and that's okay.
Well, thank you so much for going over this in depth. This has really been a great topic, and we look forward to seeing you next time.